This is a audio only video. If you are expecting any visuals, you will not find it in this one, as it's purely a talking about my going back to church after a 7-month period of not going to anything religious at all. I actually went to church recently because I was trying to get something for an article, because I've gotten my journalistic degree now. Usually finalize some things, but I got all the skills for it, so I'm trying to do independent journalism. And I found one thing interesting going back to church, because I had to do the mass, at least sit in the mass, at least for the time being. The thing I found interesting about going back to mass, as someone who has fully deconstructed and left their religion, is the implications of how people were. I guess for me it was doubly so because I knew everybody there fundamentally. And for me, it was less about just the religion and the ceremony, and more so just getting through it. Oh, as a direct result, I was actually observing a lot of stuff going on in and around the mass and the sort of messages they're pushing. As a direct result of that, it was actually fascinating because I had my own theories on atheists who are ex-religious and atheists who are never religious. And this actually doubles up because I had some conversations with some others who were never religious atheists who kind of get offensive about religion in some ways, where they want to talk about respectability and all of that, when in reality the choices and judgments made around religion is actually made off an objective observation through seeing how the practical functionality exists within organized religion. In that angle, the never religious atheists fall into two camps in my experiences. Camp 1, the people who never really adapted to a reality of religion in terms of a harm framework. And 2, atheists who indirectly become apologetics for religion. The second one is more so the case existing in when they want to say like religious tolerance, yet in functionality not really understanding the realities of religion. The control mechanisms in and around religion is very, very strong. The whole mystery angle of religion can be weaponized with or against you, depending on the situation. And a lot of never religious atheists who never engage with anything around churches will never understand that point. Back to church. The Mass was interesting, as in the Mass didn't really change in and of itself. It's functioned very much like a regular Mass. Older servers, priest, so on, so on, so on. However, the difference was now I am seeing Catholicism purely from a outsider's perspective primarily. It's actually a lot more interesting when you think about it, and especially if you are ex-religious and you look back at your own religion. If you do so, it gets quite interesting in terms of the observations made. The loving parts is often overstated because often within the theology is often a hard line thing of Iron Age or Bronze Age logic to it, in the sense of, well, the best way to put it is, it would be befitting much more of a capitalist framework than it would otherwise. By that I mean, it was primarily about, in some areas anyway, at least in my case, of what they were talking about in there, about things like people not getting food if you don't work and stuff like that, showing not much real compassion towards those who actually are trying their best but are not being accepted or getting any ground. And that is where I think a lot of the dynamics around it is interesting in some aspects, because as someone who does both political science and journalism, I cannot unsee the reality of the political ideology aspects of beliefs itself. As a direct result of that, that's an interesting thing when I was listening to the priest talk about what things mean. The whole talk about faith, especially after a deconstruction and talking about it through an ex-religious framework, is very shallow in terms of its help. To be honest, as a direct result, I cannot understand why people was talking about some stuff in it. Because what good does faith do to save you or your situation? If anything, it sounds like pure desperation. Because the preacher today, at least when I was there, was talking about people going back to church to some degree. But do I think that is because of any validity in terms of their belief on it? No. Rather, the modern world today is filled with such hardship that is unfairly imposed. That itself has its own limitations, which you cannot really resolve materially, at least currently with the current way governments are set up. And this is where doing both journalism and political science is actually interesting. I am not understanding as the result the whole thing of like spirituality of how it can help. If they was to help, they would at least push for slight political change or trying to get the system to actually work for people. So the desperation itself cannot continue in cycles, which would then prevent the whole thing of like trapping people to religion itself. So in that aspect, the whole thing about religious hope is more a band-aid solution, where in reality it won't solve anything at all. And that's why the whole religious faith and devotion is kind of pointless to me in that angle, because what are you going to gain from that? You're gonna go to your mass with the same hardship and stuff you have to deal with, then leave. Return to the same hardship and brutality that you came from. You may get peace for like 2 seconds, but then the rest of it is hardship and brutality all over again. Then what? Why don't people put the energy they have in their religious devotion to actually try to improve the system so the brutality and hardship does not continue in cycles, which makes people so worse off. How about that? So in that aspect, I think people should abandon a lot of religious faith and actually use that energy for something productive. That's basically all I want to end off it with here for now. I know it's been a while since I've done anything. I've been doing stuff in real life. Enjoy your day, everybody, and say in the comments what your thoughts is on the matter